what the Interfaith Center was committed to is not a series of programs, but a societal change endeavor, systemic change. Because that's the age we're living in. It's not putting Band-Aids or getting an exciting speaker or whatever, or even taking kids to a camp. These programs are great, but when you come back, and this is just our youth, but when you come back, if the system you re-enter, whether it's your school, your family, your congregation, is not supportive of the ideas that now you've been awakened to, whether it's about race, whether it's about religion, whether it's about sexual harassment. We all go to diversity. We all go to these training things. So if we take kids away for a week, we bring them back home, they don't have the support around them to live into a different way. So in the youth work that we do, which is the Interfaith Center does, which we have a particular model that works with congregations on the ground. So our work over the last 5 years has been bringing synagogues, churches, mosques, the Baha'i community together in a neighborhood to bring together youth on a project of service to their own community and interfaith understanding. So this project, which is called Walking the Walk, has really taken off. And I think that what it's done as far as the reason it's become, I think, really flourished is because people, congregations are looking for a way to meaningfully engage their high school youth. It's hard to maintain a faith commitment in those high school kind of college years, and yet there's a great, young people have a great desire to serve. There's a great deal of idealism in those years. There's a great deal of questioning of identity. So here comes this program that's socially relevant because we're living in an age where religion matters, kind of cultural literacy around diversity and religion only being one factor in that, but to be in an environment that's racially, socioeconomically, and religiously diverse, it's equipping young people with skills to go into the workforce, to go into the school, to change the dynamics. So we're looking at a kind of societal change model where we want people to have had an experience that they might not have if we don't kind of intentionally work to intervene, to bring people together across faiths. So what you see as a result, for example, is right here in West Philadelphia, two of the founding congregations are Cuba Institute for Islamic Studies on like 42nd and 47th and Chestnut, and White Rock Baptist Church, which is on 47th and Market, which is on Chestnut in the 40s, who never even knew one another 5 years ago, yet they're only blocks away. They've been working together with their teens on this project of community service and dialogue. And when the White Rock Baptist Church decided to offer a free science for a supplementary science program for their 3rd and 4th graders at their church, and they had room for more kids, they went to their now friends at Cuba Institute and said, might your 3rd and 4th graders want to come on Saturdays for this free science supplement program? So here you see something that we never would have dreamed of. We're developing a program with the idea that we're going to yoke congregations together to have experiences together, knowing that we hope that those experiences will take on lives of their own in real relationships in real time. And then, offerings like an educational supplementary program that isn't paid for by the state, or it's just paid, it just arose out of the good, will of a particular congregation. We don't even know the layers of offerings like that. How would we even know, because that type of program isn't even registered as a nonprofit. I mean, we know, and Ram Khan's done fantastic work about documenting the major service delivery efforts that are that could be found, many of whom had to operationalize and become nonprofit and to accept money and from federal money or state or city money. But there are so many ways that we're weaving the fabric of society through our faith communities. Sometimes in this instance, it even has nothing to do with faith, but it has to do with our commitment to young people and kind of forging a generation that's going to have greater chances for success. So that's just in our own little microcosm, one small example of one. We have 6 of these networks of congregations now. Our goal would be that any neighborhood, any part of the 5-county region who would like to come together with faith communities in their area to do a program of interfaith understanding and service has that opportunity. But one of the really curious things is that once we began doing this youth project, the adults in the congregation said two things. One, I wish that we had something like that when I was a kid. Wish I had something like that when I was a kid. And we heard that from pastors and imams and rabbis, and and then we also said, how can we together engage as an adult to be supportive of this work? Because if we're doing societal change and we're committed to this idea of we're all in the business of healing and shaping the society we want to live in, how can we partner? So what happened was this project that began with congregations recruiting youth ended up adding mentors to the mix. And we began seeing the adults who were accompanying the youth on their journey as a chance for living out a couple of really foundational principles in our work. One is that identity is shaped when we're deeply rooted in our own sense of self and our own heritage. And that's what real pluralism is about. So we're not about trying to bring people together for some generic sense of spirituality. It's what in our own tradition, in Islam and Judaism and Christianity, propels us to serve. So we learn that in Christianity, the concept of stewardship is very much like the concept in Judaism of tikkun olam, or repairing the world, which is very similar to the kind of idea, ideas in Islam about taking responsibility for the orphan, the widow, that is, and then we begin to hear language in each, and we teach the youth that we don't just serve, but we say, where is this rooted in our tradition? And it's not that it's, some prescribed curriculum that came down from some standards on high that community service would be a good idea, that it's deeply tied to our heritage. And then we start talking to our parents and seeing it living its way out. So we're hoping that this is a little microcosm of this is our own nonprofit endeavor to kind of really try to bring forth the fullness of youth and adults who happen to be parts of congregations. One thing I will say is, because the Interfaith Center hosts coordinates the Religious Leaders Council of Philadelphia, we get a lot of calls, which is the elected and appointed heads of all the various religious denominations in Philadelphia. We are getting a lot of calls from social service agencies, anywhere from kind of emergency response organizations and government agencies to the school district's faith-based initiative person, or the faith-based initiative person who's working on drug and alcohol abuse, saying that their agencies have a need to reach out to the religious communities. And there's nobody who has responsibility for that. So we're actually now partnering with Drexel School of Public Health, because we've kind of, we know colleagues there, and we said there seems to be kind of a gap in the provision of services, that we couldn't possibly barrage every religious leader with all of the calls that we're getting. So there must be a gap in, because people, I think, are realizing in social services, we have funds, we have services that are available to people who have addiction problems, who have abuse issues, who have special needs, kids, and they're finally catching on to the sense that people who are affiliated with congregational life it might be a way of reaching people that otherwise could get missed through a normal social service delivery. So I think there's what we see as a huge gap in just connecting the available services and resources with the religious community. So maybe, I don't know if that's a new gap,
right,
or maybe what you're saying, because so many have arisen. I mean, in kind of taking quantum leaps, that there's no way that we could catch up. So I think what we've seen, because we're the recipient of the calls, is we're aware that if I'm a rabbi in a local congregation, I wouldn't pretend to even count. I'd want to refer to anybody who has any social issues to the proper places, and especially if there are systems equipped and funded to do it. But how could I possibly keep up with knowing all that's available? So I think that's something that would be an interesting. We hope that maybe with Drexel School of Public Health or some emerging initiative, we can kind of define the need, and also maybe some funding would come forth to close that gap. One thing that has arisen, it's arisen in my own synagogue, so I have every reason to believe that it's true in other congregations, is a support network for unemployed folks. So in our synagogue, when we began to see a lot of people, everyday people, finding themselves in that situation due to the change shift in the economy, people began to create a network of folks and reached out to other area synagogues. And so this group has been meeting twice a week to help one another with job contacts and resume writing. They've been and really creatively reached out to the broader resources of their congregants and said, and came up with this great model that they invite members of the congregation who have related jobs just to talk about what's their field, where's it going, what openings are in my field. Somebody else might be a human resource professional, and give guidance in that regard. So it's been a nice community building, a kind of give back kind of thing, and also and people don't feel alone, and they feel that their religious community can help. And I imagine that that's something a congregation doesn't expect, or a pastor, or rabbi, to have any way of supporting people through those life changes. But here, that sort of service arose that's probably much more, again, accessible to people where they would be looking for it, in a place that feels like home, an extension of their home, safe environment to, and you don't have to find your way and stand in lines for some sort of job counseling thing. Or there's another one that I've heard of recently at a local church, and again, because it's so prevalent, I bet it's happening a lot, is a support group that formed by people living with cancer, and they saw a need, they felt a need. They can't be the only people living with cancer, and why don't we get a group of people in our own congregation together to meet weekly? And then once they did, they began to seek other resources in their own community to help them look at the various aspects of that, both from information, referral, medical, and advice to just pure the kind of ways it wreaks havoc on the spouses or partners who are caring for an ill person, family member, family dynamics, and to share all those things. So all of these are, and again, these are things that might not even be picked up by a survey, because they don't end up, I don't think, becoming embedded and formalized, certainly don't become nonprofits, or people, may not even think about, I mean, there are things that have arisen. It's just sparking my mind, my memory, that there are synagogue communities more and more have begun to offer like healing services, and I know that that's probably something that's existed in other church contexts or others. So again, people noticing that there's many people living with various forms of illness, from emotional to physical, and just building into a context of the rhythm of religious life. Okay, so once a month on a Sunday night, we can create a space where people can come together in the modality that fits their own faith community. And people have come forth to lead those who professionally, might be psychologists, they might be healing professionals of any kind, they might be religious leaders or spiritual counseling, creating, rituals and prayer time together, again, that people don't have any idea what value that has, and even to the medical care. I mean, it's been all this research about even keeping support systems in place, and positive, positive framework, and the role of prayer in keeping people positive in facing health crises. And these healing services have really attracted just such a wide array of things, so people can come in and out of them as they face a particular illness, or it might be just a hard time that they're going through. So who knows, if we can just anecdotally point to these things that do arise in religious contexts that probably wouldn't work if come downtown, Monday night at 8 o'clock for a healing service. I mean, it's just not, it's not going to be as organic to the life of a community, of an individual, in their modality that they're comfortable with, related to their own faith commitments, and